We are on the bottom of Hey Base. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Okay, so we're on the bottom of Hey Base, around 10 lines from the bottom. Today's Daf Yomi. The Daf Yomi for Shabbos is Daf Vav from Maseches Kiddushin. So the Daf for Maseches Kiddushin tells us that Amar Shmuel says, let's say we're talking about a betrothal, but Kiddushin, case of betrothal, Nasan Kesef. Let's say the man gives her money, Vishava Kesef, or he gives her the equivalent of money. And then when he gives her this money, Amar, he says, when he gives her the money, he says, Harayat Mekudash, it says, behold, you're betrothed. He says, you're betrothed, but he doesn't say you're betrothed to me, he just says you're betrothed. Or Harayat Murasis, or Harayat into, in all these three cases, then if even though he doesn't say to me, we're going to say Harezu Mekudash. This is a valid betrothal. But let's say he says, Hareini Sheikh, Hareini Baalech, Hareini Arusech, let's say he says, behold, I'm your husband. Three versions of this. I'm your husband. There's nothing to worry about it here. It's not a valid betrothal. And so too by a case of divorce. Let's say he gives her the get, and he says to her, he says, you're sent away. You're divorced. You're permitted to everybody. Then she's going to be betrothed, divorced. But let's say he says to her, Any sheikh, any balech, any arusech. He says, I'm not your husband. I'm not your baal. I'm not your arusa. Your arus. Income based mukhus. It's not even a divorce at all. So Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. Rav Papa says to Abaye Lememra. So the Savar Shmuel Yadayim Shem Mochichos Hav Yadayim. It means from here that Shmuel is saying, even though the statement was not 100% clear, it's a yad, it's a handle, it's like a hint to a larger statement. And even though it's not 100% clear, we're going to say we understand what it's saying. But Shmuel doesn't say like that elsewhere, because Vatanan, we learned in the Mishnah in Nazir, Omer Eheg, if he says, I will be, Harez and Nazir, we say that that's a valid case of him being a Nazir. We say, why does that work to be a Nazir? Maybe he's saying, I just will sit and fast. And we explain, Shmuel, that there's a Nazarite walking in front of him, and that's when he says, hey, that's when he becomes a Nazir. So what's the reason why that works? Time of the Nazir over Ofanam, because there's a Nazir walking in front of him. But if the Nazir was not walking in front of him, well, we wouldn't be considered a Nazir. So we see from here, Shmuel does not say Yadayim Shem Mochichos Hav Yadayim. So why in this case is it a valid yad? So the Gemara explains, it's not a yad here. He says explicitly, behold, you are betrothed to me. So the Gemara says, well, if that he actually says, behold, you're betrothed to me, my kamashmawan. What's Shmuel teaching us? It's obvious. He says you're betrothed to me. Obviously, it's a valid betrothal. So the Gemara says, Lishna Basrai kamashmawan. No, it's the latter three cases that are not clear, where he said that's what it's teaching us, where he says, behold, I'm your husband. And that those three cases are no good, and that's what Shmuel is teaching us. Why? Why is that no good? It means he needs to take her. He needs to say, you are my wife, not to say, I am your husband. He has to send her away. Not that he says, I'm no longer your husband. He has to send her away. He says, you are divorced from me. Not that he says, I'm no longer your husband. So the Gemara says in the Brisa, if he says, you're my wife, you're my betrothed, you're acquired to me, this is a valid betrothal. So and then it says, if you're mine, or if you're my domain, or if you're connected to me, this is a valid betrothal. So the Gemara asks the question, why does it have to break it up into two groups of three? Why does it list them all as one? So the Gemara says, Tana tlas shaminu v'garsiu. The Tana, hear them three at a time. Hear them taught three at a time, and that's how we remember them. That's how we say them over. So the Gemara asks the question, miuchedesli mahu. Let's say he says, you're designated to me, you're special for me. As Rasi, he says, you are my Azer, you are my helper. Negdasi, you are against me. Mahu. Atsurasi, Mahu. Let's say he says, you are my my atzura, meaning to say that she's from the expression of ne'etzeres, like Rashi says that she's gathered with me in the house. So she's saying you're my expression of atzeres or tzawasi, you're my rib, so to speak, like by Adam and Eve, or skurasi, where he says you are my sigura, meaning to say somebody closed off for me, or tachtai, you're underneath me, you're with me, or tfusasi, something that I have grabbed hold of, or lukuchasi, what I've taken. What's the law in all these cases? The Gemara says pasha miyachada. Let's at least answer one of them. The Tanya Omer lukuchasi. If you say the expression of lukuchasi, harezu mikudashes. This is a betrothal. Mishum shenemar ki yikach ishisha. When a man takes a woman, that's an expression of betrothal. Ibayu charufasi. So the Gemara says, let's say use the expression of charufasi. You're my designee. What's the law? Tashma. The Tanya Omer charufasi mikudashes. You have a Bryce that says if you are macharufa, that's a valid betrothal. Shenemar because we have the case of a woman who's shivcha charufa. We say that she's a shivcha necharefes lish, designated for a man. But and furthermore, Yehuda koren larusa charufa. Also in Judea they call an arusa charufa. So the Gemara says Yehuda va'od likra. Well, if we have Yehuda, why? If we need a pasuk, why do we need Yehuda? So that's what the Gemara is asking. Yehuda va'olakra. So why does the pasuk need a proof from the practices of Yehuda? It's just bring the pasuk. So the Gemara explains halacha kamar Omer charufasi b'Yehuda mekudashes. That if you say the word charufasi in Judah, she's betrothed. She came to Yehuda, koren la arusa charufa, because in Yehuda they call the arusa a charufa. So the Gemara says, "B'maya skina," and what are we referring to? What's the scenario? If we say we're talking with her on a matter, if we say he's not even speaking to her about a matter relating to, so the Gemara is now going back to those Lashonos that we had earlier, where we had a question whether or not they were Kiddushin or not. So the Gemara says, well, what's our situation? Why do you say he's not speaking about her, about the matters of her divorce and her betrothal? Then how does he, then even if this is an expression of Kiddushin, how does he know that she wants to be betrothed to him? How will she know? So it must be that he's talking about matters of Gittin and Kiddushin. And and even though he didn't say to her, even though he doesn't say specifically to her expression of Kiddushin, she's still going to be Mikudesh, just Nami, like we learned the Tanan, like we learned in the Mishnah in Meiser Sheni. He's talking to the woman about the matters relating to her getting Kiddushin. And he gave her the get and the Kiddushin. He didn't explain it, and it wasn't explicit. So under those circumstances, Rabbi Yossi Omer Dayo, Rabbi Yossi says that's sufficient, and she's going to be betrothed or divorced, depending on what he gave her. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says she need to be explicit. Amar Avuna Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yossi, that the law is like Rabbi Yossi, that it is sufficient. So therefore, why is the Gemara here questioning about the languages of Kiddushin? If he's speaking to her about it, then even without these languages, she's going to be betrothed. So the Gemara's answer is Amre. The Gemara says, and he was really talking to her about matters relating to Gittin and Kiddushin. If he would just give it to her and be quiet, yeah, she would either be divorced or betrothed. But he gave it to her, and he said this expression, and so this is the question. Our question is this language a language of betrothal, or maybe he wants her to work for him? He's trying to hire her for a job. So the Gemara says, take her. Leave it unresolved. He's speaking with his wife about matters relating to Gettin or Kiddushin. And he gave her the get or the betrothal. And he was not explicit that he wants to marry her with this. So he was not explicit. Rabbi Yossi Omer Dayo, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Tzarech Farsh. Rabbi Yossi says it's official. Rabbi Yehuda says you need to be explicit. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shmuel, Lusha Sukim Ma'uso Inyan. That's where he was involved in that specific topic. So we see it's only good if he's talking about that topic, not like we said earlier that he was not talking about the topic. So Gemara says Kitanai. This is actually a dispute amongst the Tanaim. Rabbi says V'husha Sukim Ma'uso Inyan. When do we say it's a vow betrothal? If he was talking about marriage. Rosh Shimon says Afal Pisha Eino Sukim Ma'uso Inyan. Even though he's not talking about that matter, it's still going to be valid. So the Gemara says V'lav. If he's not talking about that specific matter, how would we know exactly what he's speaking to? How do we know he's giving it to for the purpose of Kiddushin? So maybe he's not talking about that. So the Gemara says, a very beautiful phrase. He's talking about that topic, a totally different, a separate topic, but it's still connected. Meaning to say he's not actually, Rashi says, he's not talking about Kiddushin Mamish. He's talking about other things, but nevertheless, he's talking about something related to their zivig. Like, for example, he says how much the dowry would be, or how many fields you'll need to be supported. So it was a tangentially connected topic. Amar Rav Huna Amar Shmuel Halacha Rabbi Yossi. Rav Huna says the name of Shmuel. The law is like Rabbi Yossi, and what was Rabbi Yossi's teaching? The law is like Rabbi Yossi, who says that if you're speaking with the woman about matters of Kiddushin and he gave her the money, she's betrothed, and also about divorce. So the Gemara says, so Rav Yemer says to Rav Ashi, that which Rabbi Yehuda taught in the name of Shmuel, whoever doesn't understand the laws or the nuances of Gittin and Kiddushin should not have any involvement in them whatsoever. Even if he didn't hear them, maybe does this mean even if he didn't hear this teaching that Rav Huna said in the name of Shmuel that the law is like Rabbi Yossi in this specific case? Yes. If he doesn't know this halacha of Rav Huna or Shmuel, that the law is like Rabbi Yossi in this case, that it's a vow of betrothal. If you're talking about that topic, then you shouldn't have any involvement in the laws of Gittin and Kiddushin. And so too by divorce. Hold on one second. So, he So the Gemara says, so too with respect to divorce. If he gave her a get and he said to her, behold, you are sent away. Behold, you're divorced. Behold, you permit to every man, then she's divorced. So the Gemara says, Shita Nasama Gita, it's obvious that if he gave her a get and he said to his wife, you're free and clear, that's obviously he said nothing to her under those circumstances. This is a Gemara that we had in Gittin at the end of Gittin, because that's not an expression of divorce. Because even when she's married, she's free and clear. And and so too it's obvious. He said to his maid, Adam, says to his maid that you're allowed to be free to every person, because his maid is a slave, and that's not an expression of release. But let's say he says to his wife, you're for yourself. Now, what does it mean? Maybe he's saying to her, you could do work for yourself. Or maybe he's saying she's divorced. Let's bring a proof. Titania Gufo shall get shichor. What's the essence of a document of emancipation? You are free, you are for yourself. Just like a Canaanite slave. The Kanile Gufe, who the master owns the whole slave. When he says you're for yourself, he means you're completely released. Isha, his wife, the little Kanile Gufe, where he obviously doesn't have control over her whole body. But Kol Shekain, for sure, it should be a release. So it says, Ravino Ravashi, let's he says to a slave, I have no involvement with you. What will be the law there? It doesn't mean I want nothing with you completely, Kamroi. And so therefore she's divorced, or therefore the slave is, if somebody says, Or do we say he's saying to his slave, I have nothing at all to do with you, and he's freeing completely the slave? Or maybe saying, I don't want your work product from this job, but he's not freeing the slave. So let's answer this question. If somebody sells a slave to an idolater, he goes free. And he requires a release from the first master. And where he didn't write for him an ono. We'll see what that is in a moment. If he wrote an ono, that's his release. And what is an ono? When you run away, I have no asek with you. So we see from here, asek b'cha is an expression of emancipation. So if he writes this to a slave, the slave is freed. We had this Gemara at the end of Gittim on Dafei Pei so it's basically a repetition of it. Good Chazara. Amar Abaye Hamikadesh b'malva. So Abaye says somebody who betroths a woman with a loan ain't a mekudeshes. It's not going to be a valid betrothal. Rashi says here, what does it mean? He says, I lent you $100. I want you to become betrothed to me with this $100 that I lent you. You don't have to pay it back. Right? The Gemara says it's not a valid mekudeshes. Why? Rashi explains, because the whole idea of betrothing her is learned out from the fields of Ephron, where you have to give something at the moment of Kiddushin. And a loan, we assume it is meant, when you gave this loan earlier, it was already spent. And so it's already her money. And so therefore she owes him other money. But that specific money was already spent. So therefore, Abaye says, Hamikadesh b'malva is not a valid betrothal. But b'hanos malva, but if he gives it to her with the benefit of b'hanos malva, he says, with the benefit of a loan, that is mekudeshes. That is a valid betrothal. But you're not allowed to betroth her in this way. They are ramas ribis, because it looks like it's a loophole to really get around the prohibition of interest. So, hayanas malva echidami. What does it mean that you're trying to betroth her with the benefit of a loan? What does that mean? So the Gemara says, echidami ilema da askafa. If you want to say that what we're talking about here is that from the beginning, he set up the loan in this case with interest from the beginning, and that's what he did. Meikara. Some say it's to uspa, not askava, that he lent her the money in this way from the beginning. That from the outset he lent her 4 and says, pay me back 5. And now he says, become betrothed to me with this 5th coin. Darmala arba, bechamisha, or haribis mal yasu. That's not haramas ribis. That is the actual interest. So why would they call that aramas ribis? So actually, what is it then? Oh, the hainu malva, and that's also just a loan. So the Gemara says, "Lo tzricha the arvacha zimna." No. So what's Abaye talking about? That you can become betrothed with the benefit of a loan. The arvacha zimna, that he stretched out the time that she has to pay him back the loan. He says, "Become betrothed to me with this benefit, that you would have given money to a person to calm me down and say, don't pay me back right away." And so therefore, for this betrothal, I'm waiving the obligation for you to pay back. And so that is actually a value. And so therefore, this is something that you don't have to pay me back right away, because there's a benefit to delaying the repayment of the loan. It's not actual ribis, because he's not getting any physical money, but it's what's called haramas ribis. And so therefore, that is going to be a valid way of betrothing. But you can't do it because it's haramas ribis. Amar Rava, Helach mana amanas shetachziruli. So Rava says, let's say you would give a person money on the condition that you have to return it to me afterwards. But if you want to buy a piece of land, then you give him the money, and he says, I'm giving you money for this land, but you have to return this money to me afterwards. Low con, you have not acquired the land. But Isha, but let's say you want to betroth the woman in this manner, and then we're going to say, if you give her money on the condition she returns it to me, it's not a valid betrothal. The pigeon ben. And what about by the redemption of the child, the pigeon ben? It's not a valid way of redeeming the firstborn son. The truma, but if he wants to, so he gives the truma on the condition that the Kohen has to return him. He's fulfilled his obligation of giving the truma. The asr so it's came. You're not allowed to do that. Now the Kohen should receive the truma with the intent to return it. Because it looks like the Kohen is helping the owner of the field in the granary, meaning he's helping him on the condition that afterwards he gives him the truma. And the Kohen can't do this because it looks like he's buying the truma. It looks like he's getting the truma as a payment. And so therefore he's desecrating God's name, and you're not allowed to give him the truma. And so therefore, if the Kohen agrees to receive the truma on the condition that he returns it, it looks like he's doing this so that the Kohen, the Yisrael will give him other truma. And it's like he's buying the truma with his work. And so therefore it's not going to be allowed. So the Gemara says, "My kosava Rava." What's the position of Rava? That he draws a distinction between the fact that you're not allowed to sell something on the condition that the money is returned, and Kiddushin it's not valid, and Pidyon Ben it's not valid, but Truma is valid. If he says a gift on the condition that you have to return it is still a gift, I feel cool nami. All these other cases should also be a valid gift. And if he says not a valid gift, I feel Truma nami. Also, Truma should not be a gift. And furthermore, Rava is the one who says that a gift on the condition they have to return it is called a matana. Rava is the one who says it. A gift on the condition that you have to return it is called a matana. Amarava helach esrog zeh. Rava says specifically that if a person says, take this esrog and it'll be yours and fulfill the mitzvah of esrog, really on the condition they return it to me, if he takes it and returns it, he fulfills his obligation of the esrog. If he doesn't, he hasn't. So what's Rava thinking? So Rav Ashi says, Rava says, and actually in all these cases, the gift on the condition that you return it does work. It works by land, it works like by Pidyon Ben, and it works by Truma. Because a gift on the condition you have to return it is a gift. With the exception of a woman. Because a woman cannot be betrothed in this manner through chalipin, through exchange. And so therefore it just doesn't work by a woman. We saw earlier why chalipin doesn't work, because chalipin can be done with less than a pruta, and a woman has to be betrothed only with a pruta. Indeed, that's the teaching we have in the name of Rava. Okay, we'll stop here. Everybody have a good Shabbos, and we'll repeat this stuff on Shabbos Kodesh. Shkoyach.